good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers.
The art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge.
Hello everyone, I'm Trevor and welcome back to the Knowledge Management e-learning video series, prepared for the Philippine Red Cross. Leadership. It is one of the quintessential buzzwords, something that we toss out there all the time when talking about ourselves and our organizations. This term may be abused by people who want to sound good, but do not let that cheapen its value. Leadership is absolutely vital to success in all organizations. And yes, you guessed it, leadership is very important when it comes to knowledge management as well. As we have already talked about, knowledge management is a process that relies on people and not a magic database or some other technological solution. So, how do we define leadership? Actually, let's start out with a favorite quote of mine about what leadership is not. Former American President Dwight D. Eisenhower said that, quote, "You do not lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership," unquote. One way of actually defining leadership is to say that it is how an individual influences a group to reach a common goal. This means that leaders have a pivotal role on both their own teams and the entire organizations. Leaders drive change with the effect of their ideas, power to motivate and inspire, and ability to acquire and share knowledge with members of their organization. It also means that everyone in your organization can be a leader, because everyone is capable of influencing the group to help reach your common goal. If you need more evidence of why everyone should be a leader, consider the knowledge management survey that I sent out a few months ago. In it, 100% of respondents answered that sharing information is an important part of their job. 100%, every single person said it was. Remember in the last video when we showed you the colorful spinning wheel that we called the knowledge management competency model? Well now, we're going to ramp up and focus on the leadership portion of it. Why is the leadership part of the circle so important? Let's take a look at what Verna Ali says. Verna Ali is an American business consultant and writer on topics including knowledge management. She is someone who is paid lots by big companies to help with their knowledge management, and just like our knowledge management competency model, Ali places the priority on people first. Ali wrote an article about the importance of leadership in knowledge management, in which she said that the field of knowledge management would be better described if its name was changed from knowledge management to knowledge leadership. This is because knowledge management cannot be practiced without leadership, and leaders play a critical role in the sharing of knowledge within an organization. So what specifically does Verna Ali mean by this? What does this look like? In describing some of the challenges she has faced while consulting for large technology companies, she wrote that, quote, "One global technology company spent roughly $7 million building a best practice database for all its technology consultants around the world. When it became apparent that people weren't contributing to or accessing the database, they asked me to help them assess what went wrong. When I inquired how much of that $7 million was invested in trying to understand how the target group of people already creates and shares knowledge, or bringing them together as a learning community, the answer was zero," unquote. Ali then compared this approach taken by a subsidiary of telecom giant AT&T, which, quote, invested in studying how the group was already learning and sharing knowledge. Based on what they learned, they trained everyone in the group for 40 hours in what it means to be a learning community. For the training, they partnered with consultants with experience in learning organization concepts and practice. They fine-tuned rewards and measurements to support community learning. Only then did they identify what technology support they needed, unquote. The key difference between these approaches was that one was people-driven and the other was not. The first company spent millions of dollars trying to create an unwieldy database and have its people conform to it, without considering how they were currently sharing knowledge and whether this is an appropriate technology to help them share this knowledge. By taking a technology-centric approach, they completely overlooked their people and the existing culture of sharing knowledge. The AT&T approach was the opposite and examined how their people already shared knowledge. It used technology to enhance the sharing, and only once other key elements of the knowledge management process cycle had already been strengthened, with the most important part being the capacity of its people and culture of learning together. Where the first company created a database to share things that the designers and management thought were important, the AT&T approach allowed the database to be filled by the learning community of all members of the company. The information practices that they collectively identified as important. You can all summarize this in just a few words. Any knowledge management system should be built into the ways that people already work.
Leadership. The word ship is hidden inside the word leadership as its derivation. So, if this office is in fact a ship, as its leader, I am the captain. But we're all in the same boat. Teamwork.
Another reason for knowledge management leadership is that no one has a monopoly on great ideas. This is especially true with leaders because they often do not know all the specifics of the work you are doing. If you have to manage a blood bank, health, disaster, safety and welfare services, plus special projects, plus chapter administration, plus fundraising, strategic planning, and more, it is going to be impossible for you to know the work of your subordinates better than they know their own work. It is important that leaders at the top help with knowledge management and encourage and support the 4 practices for sharing tacit knowledge that we discussed in the previous video. But what does knowledge management leadership look like at all levels? Can you really be a leader if you are not managing anyone or have no one reporting to you? You absolutely can and you absolutely should. Anyone who wants their organization to succeed has a role to play in being a knowledge management leader. But how can I do this? What does this look like? I'd like to share a short story about this. It is a non-Red Cross example, and let's call this story Olives on an Airline. This story is that the salads that an airline, let's say it was Pan American, well, the salads that they serve always had a few olives on the top. This was done because, well, it was always done this way because it had always been done this way. The airline had always put olives in the salads and no one had ever questioned why. However, flight attendants noticed that almost all of the airline passengers ate their entire salad except for the olives. One day, one of them told her manager about it, who told her manager. When the Pan Am executives heard about this, they decided to stop putting olives in the salads. This simple step saved the airline hundreds of thousands of dollars in the succeeding years as they served passengers millions of salads. and the passengers didn't have to bother with picking the olives out of their salad anymore, making it a win-win situation for everyone. So, what does this show? Why did I tell this story? Well, it serves as an example of how a small thing, noticed by someone at the bottom or on the front lines, and raised to their superiors, can make a big difference. In this case, only the flight attendants who were responsible for throwing away the salad containers every day knew that the olives were uneaten. The executives in charge of designing the menu and budgeting for the food did not know this, and they would not have known if the flight attendants had not brought it up. It may seem small, but it made a difference. So what about the flight attendant who brought this concern up, who questioned why they kept putting olives in the salads when Pan American customers clearly didn't want olives in their salads? Did she do the right thing by bringing this issue to the attention of her bosses and for asking why the airline kept doing this? I would argue that she did do the right thing. What do you think? When it comes to knowledge management, good leaders welcome their employees to speak up and listen to what they have to say. They encourage employees and volunteers to ask questions, provide suggestions, and give them some consideration. And this is one of the key steps in knowledge management. After all, knowledge management is most powerful when knowledge flows up to the decision makers, allowing them to guide the organization with better informed decisions. Even the United States Army incorporates this thinking into its knowledge management strategy. The knowledge management mission statement of the US Army is to, quote, create a culture of collaboration and knowledge sharing in the Army where key information and knowledge is pushed and pulled within the global enterprise to meet mission objectives. An Army where good ideas are valued regardless of the source, knowledge sharing is recognized and rewarded, and the knowledge base is accessible without technological or structural barriers, unquote. So, despite being a very hierarchical organization like the Philippine Red Cross, the US Army has made it a policy to encourage the sharing and consideration of ideas and concerns of its soldiers, even if they are an 18-year-old private at the very bottom of the chain of command. Remember that a great leader listens to his or her team and always considers their feedback. A great leader recognizes that people can be critical of an action without being negative, and they will not feel disrespected when other suggestions are made. A great leader welcomes questions from their team because it allows them to understand more about their team and gives them a chance to explain the importance of what they are doing and how the work of this team is helping to accomplish the mission of the organization. The more questions that are asked, the more knowledge is shared. We're going to talk later about critical thinking and some tips on asking questions and sharing lessons learned. So, Trevor, if people are the most important step in the knowledge management process, and leadership is also especially important, what specific leadership steps should I be taking? Well, leadership can come in many different forms, both active and passive. You need to be actively involved in the knowledge management process because a knowledge management leader also has responsibility to make sure people have proper access to the information that they need for their jobs and that this information is periodically reviewed, updated, or archived. There is no point sharing information that is clearly outdated, and as a leader, your organization will be depending on you to use the information collected and apply the knowledge you have created. There are more passive steps that you can take as well. Being a great leader is a complex skill and one everyone can improve upon. I'm going to list 5 steps of how a great leader can help with knowledge management. These steps were put together by Dr. Anthony Rem And as always, the link to his website will be posted in the Google Classroom. Rem calls these steps the 5 ingredients of successful collaboration and knowledge sharing. And they are as follows. Number 1, be present. 2, know why you are there. 3, do not try to change the people you're working with. 4, know or see the big picture. 5, treat everyone with respect. It takes leadership to achieve all this. Great leadership is represented by people who are good listeners and respect their people based on who they are rather than who the leader wants them to be. Great leaders endeavor to explain why the organization is taking the actions that it is and how this fits into the bigger picture. And remember, all of us, including me, always have room to grow when it comes to leadership. So I invite you to do some reflecting and consider. Who is a leader in the Philippine Red Cross? How can leaders promote understanding? And what can you do to be a better leader in the Philippine Red Cross? I'm also going to share an article by Dr. Rem about knowledge management in disaster situations, which discusses how to get information to leaders and decision makers in time of crisis. Look on the Google Classroom if you want to read it. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.